iubenda. Now, what we want to do today is we want to educate you as to the importance of privacy and terms and conditions for your website, and I'm not going to say any more on that because we have the expert here. We will recap from last, well, I think 2 or 3 weeks ago we did a call and we went through it in great detail.
Yeah.
So we're going to get a little bit of a recap here from Abbie, and then what we're going to do is see iubenda in action and see how we can add the relevant policies and terms to our website. And I'm going to be watching with awe because I have my account sat here ready, which you're not going to see, but I'm going to follow all of Abbie's instructions to see whether or not I can do it for myself because we are desperate for some terms and conditions. Before we do all of that, though, let's go around the table and do our quick introductions. First of all, let's apologize for poor old Jan. He's a bit poorly, so if you could all send him loads of good, positive energy so that he will get better, that would be fantastic. Let's do a 30-second intro from each of us. Abbie, could you kick us off?
Hey guys, so I'm Abbie, head of content at iubenda, here dialing in from Milan. And yeah, I'm gonna try my best to show you all about legal compliance, data law compliance, and stuff like that. You can find me on Twitter at Abbie Clement.
Awesome. Peacher, which country are you hailing from today?
Hello. I'm hailing from Spain, where it's boiling hot again. And I'm a little bit technically challenged today because my computer is on the blink. But I'm really happy to be here today with Abbie because iubenda is my tool of choice, but I've always find it a little bit overwhelming to work out exactly what to include and what to not include. So I've been really looking forward to today, and I can't wait for you to show us how to do it. Thank you so much for being back with us.
Sounds like both you and me want the exact same from this.
Yeah,
My name is
exactly.
Lee, and I am in England in a place called Findon that I bet nobody's heard of. I'm the host of the Agency Trailblazer podcast. You can find that out over on agencytrailblazer.com. So, Abbie, I believe you're going to first of all do a bit of a recap. So me and Peacher will go quiet. In fact, we might even jump off screen to just let you get cracking. And then when you're ready, we'll pop back in and we'll throw your screen on. Does that sound like a plan?
Yeah, that sounds fine.
Alrighty.
All right, guys. So I just wanted to give a quick recap, not of the entire webinar, but just how to kind of evaluate your website really quickly. And then we'll get into how the generator can help you with that. So we're keeping it simple. There are a lot of different aspects that was covered the last time. We even touched on terms and conditions. This time we're keeping it simple, the basics that applies internationally under most countries' legislations, and the basics of privacy law, having your privacy policy done correctly and what's required. So the number one thing that you want to do is determine your laws of reference or your law of reference. And that's just simply understanding which laws you need to comply with and to what extent. So of course, this can be a little bit tricky when multiple laws and guidelines apply at the same time. So we're going to look at how you can simplify that. As a general rule of thumb, you should try to comply with the law, or not try, you need to comply with the laws of the country in which you base your operations, as well as those of the country or the countries that your website targets. So if you're based in the EU and you have US customers, if you're based in the EU, first of all, you need to comply with the GDPR. But if you have US-based users, you might need to comply with things like CAN-SPAM. If they're based in California, the CCPA and CALOPA. Now, I know I'm throwing out a lot of acronyms and so on, but if you just go to our previous recording, which is on the Facebook page, if you missed that, you can sort of catch up with what all of that means. Another thing you want to consider is making sure that your privacy-related documents are available in all of the languages that your site and service is available in. So if you do have your website in English and in Russian, you can't just have your privacy policy, or you should not just have your privacy policy in English, because then you're leaving out the rights of your Russian users. They won't be able to reasonably understand that. So that's sort of the quick recap on how to determine your laws of reference. Now, looking at evaluating your site, the last time, and I don't know if you guys want to just, I need to share my screen, so I'm just going to show the previous website that we worked on, just so that everybody can sort of get an idea. But you know what? Let's keep it simple. First of all, just going very quickly, probably no need to look at the website actually just yet. You want to ask yourself a few questions, right? So you want to look for various input, feedback, and let's say profit points to get an idea of the personal data that you process. And this is usually the first really practical step. And I'm going to show you how iubenda can help you with all of this. But let's say that that's not available. You don't have iubenda. You're not using our services. This is sort of how you can just begin to think about how to make your website compliant, how to assess your website. So you want to ask yourself, where are my user input points and what tools do I use to handle this? So the input points can be any point in which the user can take an action that's going to provide data that can be operated on by you or any of the third-party services that you use on the site. And please feel free to pause me at any time in case there are questions. But basically, depending on your setup, this can include everything from IP addresses by default, because IP addresses are considered to be personal data, for example, under the GDPR, as well as things like contact forms, newsletter forms, which is not the same as contact forms. It's a different purpose that you're collecting the email address for. Things like registration mechanisms, so even logging in via Facebook, shopping cart software, third-party login and payment widgets. So maybe you have a Stripe integration, social buttons. So all of these are third-party, all of these are input points where you are actually processing or acting on user data. So things like that you want to look out for. Another thing you might want to ask yourself is, where does my website give me feedback? So feedback in this context might refer to the collection of data that requires less direct action from the user. And this can be things like analytics and heat maps or screen recordings and these types of monitoring. You're still acting on the personal data of the users. So number one, look out for these input points, the tools that you're using, as well as where your site is giving you feedback in very simple terms. Now, this exercise will not only help you to understand where and how you might be processing personal information, but it will also help you to begin thinking about what your data processing activities in a more purposeful way, which leads us to something else that you should consider, which is, what are the purposes that I'm using this data for? Now, purposeful processing is a key element of most data protection laws, and particularly under laws like the GDPR, there's a heavy emphasis on data minimalization, which simply means making sure that you're only collecting the data that you actually need to use, right? Which also reduces the security risk to users. So if you don't need to have address, sexual preference information, biometric information. If you simply need an email address, then you should just collect an email address in very simple terms. When you're using third-party tools and things like that, it can be really easy to actually over-process data or collect more data than you actually need. So this is something that you want to make sure that you're keeping an eye out for, because under most data protection laws, you need to have an actual justification and purpose for processing the data. And under laws like the GDPR, you need to have a legal basis that actually applies, whether it's consent or legitimate interest or some other valid legal reason for processing this data. And again, you can get more information about this in the previous recording, because we cover this really in detail. So just to go on for about 5 more minutes here before we jump into the demo. So you want to make sure that you're aware of your purposes. More data means more responsibility, more risk, more liability. So you want to make sure that you carefully assess the individual purposes of your data processing activity, and this will help you to minimize and make sure that you're just processing what is strictly necessary. So aside from helping you stick with principles of data minimalization and also helping you to make sure that you have a valid legal reason for processing the data, thinking about your purposes also helps you in another way. You're legally required to disclose the purposes of your processing as well. and it's therefore critical to overall compliance. Now, this, again, it sounds like a lot because it is a lot, and that's where tools come in, like ours, like iubenda, which I'm going to start demoing quite soon. So the nice thing about our tool and about the generator is that when you have a website, it's not the first website in existence, right? So websites tend to use have similar processes, okay? They usually use contact forms in the same way, email newsletters for the same activities, similar third-party tools, and things like that. So what this allows us to do is to write clauses, or have our lawyers write clauses that cover these disclosures, that cover the purposes of the processing, what data is being processed, all of these things in a standard way, with all of the correct legal disclosures for the specific data laws. And I'll also show you that in the generator, because the disclosures you have to make under the GDPR are going to be different from the ones that you need to make under California's CCPA, for example. So what our generator does is sort of packages all of the clauses related to, let's say you have a Facebook, you have Google Analytics or something like that. So you're using data for more or less similar reasons. It's a similar style of processing. The tool is the same, things like that. So we have a clause that's several clauses written by our lawyer, and we package these clauses into something that we call services in our generator. And our generator has over 1,300 services at this point. We're always expanding, and then we have the ability to do custom ones, so that you can then, in a modular fashion, create a privacy policy that covers all of these disclosures that you need to make, while being somehow individual for your particular scenario. However, if you're not using iubenda, this is definitely something you want to keep in mind. You do need to make disclosures about the purposes of the processing. You need to be aware of all the points where you are processing data and which data you are processing as well, at a minimum. Also in tools, we have something pretty exciting, which is our site scanner. So it can be a little bit difficult to figure out exactly what's running on your site. Sometimes you think that you're aware of everything, and you might have installed one third-party product that integrates with another. So our site scanner really helps with that. You just put in the website address, we shoot off an email, we scan the site, send an email to your inbox telling you most likely which services are being used on your site, and it also shows up within the scanner. So with all of that said, I think that was 5 minutes, so I'm actually really on time this time, guys. We're gonna just jump into the demo.
Awesome. This is the bit we're all looking forward to.
Yes. So let me just do.
Whilst you do that, folks, I've put a link in the comments to the previous recording as well, so that you can go ahead and watch that, because Abbie does a real deep dive into all of that, as well as the importance and those things that you should be looking into. And also from the beginning of this, she's given you a very concise version. If you want to do this manually, then you can follow that advice. Obviously, we're now going to see how iubenda does it. And I would obviously recommend you go ahead and have a go for yourselves as well, because I'm right in saying, aren't I, Abbie, that we could do this without parting with a dime, and only when and if we're ready to use the finished product can we then pay for it. So,
well, actually, more than that, there is a basic version that you actually can use before even like buying the product. The limits is just that you're limited to not the pro clauses. So there are some popular clauses and services that we make available for free, and I think you have like about a max of 4 or 5. So if you have a very simple site, it makes sense. But even if you don't, it's very affordable. It works out to something like $4 a month for a pro license. So
the price of a cup of coffee.
Yes.
Might be a cheap cup of coffee, actually.
And also they send you really nice emails telling you, "Ooh, we've noticed you've added this plugin. That means that you need to revise your terms and conditions." It's brilliant. It's really good.
Alrighty.
So we're sharing here. So I'm already logged into my dashboard. It's really simple. If you go anywhere on, so I'm just gonna go back here real quick. If you're even on the home page, you can simply click on Start Generating at any point. I'm gonna ask you guys to just my site is my Screen is a little bit slow because I have, you probably, I don't know if you can see it, but I have like a million tabs open. So I'm just going to apologize for that right now, but it shouldn't get in the way. If you haven't already created an account, when you click on start generating, somewhere along this point, it's going to, once you put in your website, it's going to ask you to just create an account either by Facebook or putting in your email address. It's a free account, no credit card required. So just point that out. So you have a choice to generate legal documents. You have a nice little video here that actually explains how to do everything really quickly, links to the guides, a lot of help along the way, as well as we have live chat available on the site. And you can generate for your mobile app, for your website, or even for your Facebook app. So I'm going to go with my website. No, I'm going to go with my cool website. I'm going to click on start generating. So as I said, because I'm already logged in, we're here, we're in the dashboard. Now, right away, this is within this website, but the dashboard is very cool because you can have multiple websites. So if I just went back here, you will see that I have a whole bunch of different sites here. So you actually do just have one dashboard to manage all of your sites. You can update at any time. You don't have to pay anything extra or anything like that. Now here you'll see there are several different solutions. So we make it easy for you to add on any of our solutions. All of them are included in the dashboard. And the fact is, because we say that we do a 360-degree approach to compliance, and depending on which laws apply to you, we do a lot of work in explaining that, making it easy for you to figure out what applies to you. Different products might apply. In many cases, you might need more than one, so we try to make that very easy to keeping it all together, and a lot of them integrate with each other. Today, we're going to look at the privacy and cookie policy generator. So I'm just going to go ahead on generate now. And again, please have some patience. My site is super slow. So right away, we're here in within the configuration part. And the first thing we're going to want to do is to add a service. Now, everything is kind of guided. So you see services collecting personal data. Then you need to add your website and owner contact info. That's also legally required. And then we go to how to embed your privacy policy. And now right here, you have the preview that lets you see the full view of your document before you do anything. Of course, we have all the guides. And right here, it's really important. I just wanted to show you guys. Super easy to just go ahead and select, how you want to apply the laws, right? So it's going to use geolocation, and you can enable CCPA disclosures that'll show for California users. Let's say you want to apply GDPR protection, but you don't want to apply it to all users. Maybe you don't want to give all the rights to all the users. You only want EU users to have GDPR protection. So we just switch that there.
And these would be if I had clients in California, I would need to enable this, even though I'm based in the UK
exactly.
for the CCPA.
And
is
also
that correct?
some people, let's say, want to err on the side of caution, and maybe they want to apply the GDPR to everybody in the world on their site, and that's nice. But the GDPR does give enhanced rights to users. So let's say if it's not legally required to grant all of those rights to US users. So for example, the GDPR really prioritizes opt-in and really granular opt-in. And let's say it's more profitable to your marketing activities to not do that. Well, right now, currently, that might change. US law allows that. So you might say, okay, I'm just going to follow US standards for my US users and then just grant opt-out. So they're automatically opted in and they're given the option to opt out, and that might be more beneficial to your business practices, whatever. You have the option where you don't have to just have your privacy policy applying GDPR standards to everybody. So we really try to optimize for business. That's something we put a lot of focus on. We always cover you with the law, try to comply as much as possible, and while also leaving room for your business to grow, and for business processes. So let's say we're just going to go ahead and click on enable also for CCPA. And now we've recently added this one, quite new, in the last, because it just went live like last month, which is the Brazilian GDPR, and that's the LGPD. So let's say you have Brazilian-based users, you're going to need to enable that text as well. And we're always keeping our eye out on the law as it changes and adding in various laws that might apply to you.
Would you also notify us of that? So say something new comes out. So
Absolutely.
for example, say I set this up and then GDPR came out, didn't it, 2 years ago? You'd have emailed us saying, hey, FYI, you need to potentially need to update your contract. Click here to edit. Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
We send out emails whenever that changes. We also send out emails where, like, sometimes there's some events where third parties have major changes, right? So Google recently integrated, I don't use too many technical words, but IAB's TCF framework. So more or less, they require a specific type of consent for things like Google Ads to work properly if you want to maximize your ads and make sure that you're actually showing personalized ads to your users or showing any ads to your users and avoid error messages while you're using things like Google Ads. You need to be passing this specific type of consent once you're based in the EU or you have EU users. So for that, of course, we did the integrations and so on, and we send out the communications, sort of just informing people. We also keep our eyes on these things. So our newsletter is really useful. We don't send out a bunch of unnecessary emails, but as soon as something comes up that people need to be aware of that or that can affect you or your revenue, on the legal side, we always shoot out a quick email explaining how it affects you and how you can be ready for it, even if it doesn't require our services in many cases.
That's really helpful to know, though, to be honest, because I mean, I don't keep my eye on these sorts of things, so I wouldn't be aware if something changed. And if you've emailed me, that's helpful because then I can make an informed decision. Oh, do I need to do something about this? Do I need to go and get some more research? So that's good to know. You're not just generating something once. You guys are actually looking out for our backs, as it were, and informing us of the changes in the future. Thank you. Cool. Sorry, carry on. Sorry to interrupt. I just knew other people would want to know.
That's what I find really good about that. That's precisely what I find really good about the service, is that it is dynamic. It grows with you and it follows what you're doing. So it's really good.
Yeah, I'm really glad to hear that, because that's a big part of the efforts that we put in, is sort of monitoring this and communicating a lot with our users, because it's such a difficult and kind of boring. The law, nobody says, oh, wow, this is super sexy, right? So, we're kind of trying to, let's say, soften the pain and the tediousness as it is, but it takes some effort. So I'm really glad to hear that helps. So right here on the screen, I wanted to show you guys how easy it is to add a language as well. And this is, so I'm going to get back to this later, because I want to show the fact that it literally copies all of the clauses that you've already created. So you don't need to manually add those again, unless you've done a custom clause, because we can't, obviously, if it's custom, you've written it. But for the rest, you get that already in another language if need be. And we support 8 languages so far, including Spanish, French, Portuguese, and so on. I will try to remember the entire list, but it's on our site. So let's jump.
And Italian.
Yes, of course.
And Italian, because it's an Italian company.
Yes.
So yes,
absolutely, and Italian. So going on to add a service. And on your screen, this is probably going to be a lot faster. Again, my site is a little bit slow. My Chrome is a little bit slow.
I can actually vouch for that. I'm following, and on my computer, obviously, it's very fast because I have no other tabs open. And so disclaimer for anyone who's just joining us, Abbie is one of those people who likes to have 100 tabs open.
Literally, I'm looking at them. I'm pretty sure it's about 100.
So are you one of those people that you open something and think, oh, I need to leave that open because I must come back to it in 6 months' time when I remember it's there?
Pretty much. And I even have one tab installed, and I still have like 50 tabs open right now.
I feel your pain.
Researched, Okay, so right here, this is the site scanner, and all users love this because it really helps a lot for you to figure out what you need. So I'm just going to click on the site scanner, and then it's just going to open up, and I'm going to put in the URL that I want to go to. So I'm actually going to put in my website. Okay, and I'm going to just go ahead and let that scan. So what it's going to do is it's going to send an email to your inbox with like some detailed information about the services that you might be missing. But the nice thing also is that it shows up within the generator as well once it's done with the scan. So we'll open this back up here, and then pretty soon we're going to see it trying to pull the data right here for you so that you can see exactly what you need to include. So it'll tell you if there are any perfect matches and if you have any suggestions. So let's see what the suggestions are.
So this is where I start sweating slightly, because there is so much here, and then I go, oh, which plugin do I need to include? What is it? And I get very, so look, please carry on.
Yes, I mean, I totally understand, because so many of them, they integrate with other things, and sometimes you're really not aware that you have something running on your site. Like if I just have WordPress, I might not be aware that WordPress stat is processing different personal data, and that I may need to disclose that, right? I might just think, okay, WordPress, and I'm covered. So the nice thing is that it also gives you hints about the service, because let's say it pulled something that might not be applicable. I mean, it's never happened, but in general, we don't want you to just add services. Okay, it told me add this and I add this. We do want you to understand what you're adding, right? Because as the data controller, as the site owner, whatever, at the end of the day, you're responsible for your website, for the user data that you process. So a lot of what we do is we try to educate as well and make it easy for you to understand what's going on. So we do have hints about the service, and then sometimes we'll suggest other services that you should add as well. So I'm going to go ahead and I'll show you that in a second. So let's just go ahead and add these clauses here. Let's say Google Optimize 360. Now, for example, in some cases, additional information might be required. Now, if you're in the EU, for example, I need to click Google Ireland, because the personal data will be shared with Google in the EU, because under the GDPR, if you're sending data across borders to the US and things like that, there's certain requirements that need to be met. Some of them are covered by the Privacy Shield, but that was recently invalidated, which is a whole lot of legal stuff. It's on our website as well. We also send out emails about it. And in many cases, maybe just to cover yourself, you might want to include, like if you're in the EU, you might want to include both Google Ireland as well as Google LLC US, because that's the main one. But the point is that you do need to disclose the location where the information is being processed with this third party. So additional information was required. Now, the privacy and cookie policy generator, it also generates a cookie policy that can be automatically integrated with our cookie solution, which we're not going to cover today, the cookie solution, but it's pretty easy, straightforward, and we have videos showing you everything about it on the site. So this right here allows you to decide if you want to specify the cookie lifetime, which is how long, once a user has given you consent for running cookies, how long that cookie stays in their browser before they're asked for a fresh consent, right? So you can make it very short, or the default maximum is 12 months, which applies in many EU member states, but this can change. So you have the ability to define this. And I think, and don't quote me on this, but I'm pretty sure that Google has recently added to their terms that they want to make sure that cookie lifetime is included. So we added in the ability to easily do that with just clicking really easily. Try to avoid making it complicated.
How would we know the cookie lifetime? Isn't that something that's set by Facebook itself anyway?
No, I mean, if you're running, like if this is a service running on your site, you can define how long you want these trackers to run or be installed like from your site. So you can use this to define that, and then we do all technical work on the back end with our cookie solution once it's set up properly. And what that'll do is that once this time has passed, we're gonna ask for a fresh consent again. So if you put 3 days, okay, after 3 days or whatever, the user, if they're visiting your site again, they will be asked again for their consent.
I did not know you did that.
Yeah,
It's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's pretty recent, but like I said, we're always updating, and this really ties into why we don't have like a template service where you just download a privacy policy, you get like a Word document or whatever, and then you just upload it on your site, because some people do ask about that. We don't do templates, so it's a dynamic solution. Sure. Also, so we've sort of gone over the site scanner, and then they suggest the services or whatever. I'm not going to add all of them just to avoid making this super long, but let's look at this section here. So what we also do, let's say you didn't even use the site scanner, is we give you the most frequent services that most people have. And that kind of helps to get you thinking also about, what should I add? So for example, here I wanted to show contact forms. Obviously, most websites have that. So let's say I add the contact form. So it's going to go ahead and ask me, again, if I want to consider this as a sale of personal data under the CCPA, you can click on the Learn More. Sorry about that. And just under the CCPA, I think I mentioned in the last webinar, currently the definition of sale is very broad. It's not like what you would think a sale is. Under the CCPA, which is California's Consumer Protection Act, so it applies to people with US-based users. Just sharing any user data, more or less, to simplify, can be considered a sale of that personal data. So just sharing that personal data for any profit whatsoever, monetary or not. So not even profit, any benefit, monetary or otherwise. So if, let's say you have this contact form, and somehow you're some other third party it's being shared with, maybe there's an intermediary or something like that, you might want to consider it as a sale of personal data. We leave it unchecked because for a contact form it's not so common, but you do have the option to do that. And this only appears because previously, if you recall, I clicked activate CCPA text. So these are disclosures that are legally required under that law. So we're not going to take it. We're not going to consider it a sale. And then I have to say what personal data I'm collecting with my contact form, right? So let's say I'm collecting email address. I might be doing first name. You can also, you don't have to click in. You can also start typing maybe last name. And maybe I'm also doing something like address. Okay, and we're just going to go ahead and save those changes right there. Now, something I wanted to show here, which is just that if you go to all, so that's another thing. We have all of the categories. So right now, I said before we had around 1,300 services. We have 1,451. So we're always including these. So the thing is that you can filter by the type of possible service. So let's say you know that you're hosted on a website. So you can go on hosting and backend infrastructure. Let's say that you have something with, I don't know, let's say advertising. There are 800 advertisers. You can add the ones that you're using, 6 cents, whatever you're using, right? Or I would suggest just going directly on all so that you're searching all, because sometimes a service might not be under the category that you think it is. And something I wanted to show here is, let's say we go to newsletter. Okay, mailing list or newsletter. Right, so if you here in the hints, it's going to give you some information that's important to know. So if you do have a mailing list or newsletter, if you monetize the email newsletter, then you're going to need to add direct email marketing as a clause as well. And this is something that a site scanner won't pick up because it's not a piece of, it's like a third-party integration or a piece of code per se. You're determining the purpose on your own end of how you're using that mailing list or newsletter. So this is why the hints are important. So don't overlook it. it's useful to read it and make sure that you're not missing something, right? So let's say I'm monetizing my newsletter, I add my newsletter, I'm probably going to need to also make sure I add direct email marketing. So anyway, we're just going to go ahead and add email address really quick so that we can go back and make sure that we're adding direct. Wait, sorry guys.
So that means that if we ever collect email addresses, then we need to add that. Is that what you've just
done? No,
it's
not if you ever collect. It's if you have an email newsletter and you use it, you also monetize it. Maybe you're also you also promote like third-party things, like maybe you have affiliate relationships with third parties, and you use your newsletter to also sell these products. You use your newsletter to sell things. Then you want to make sure that you're also including the direct email marketing.
Right. Okay. So note to self. That's something you need to add right now.
A little tip as well, folks, if you didn't spot, this is just a quick paste of an example that I received when I was doing Agency Trailblazers website. I thought, all I use is Google Analytics. So that's all I need to add. But when I ran the scan, it sent me all of these as well. So I could then just type these into that search and add them, fill in the blanks and continue. So that was really helpful. But obviously, like Abbie said, don't forget there are things outside of the scanner like direct mail. So these are important questions. Sorry, Abbie, thanks very much. Carry on.
Yeah, no worries. I was just trying to get back to my tab because I thought you were sharing something on the screen. Okay, so then the other thing here is, let's say we're going for the popular list. So really quickly, we might add Google Analytics. That's a really popular one. And again, you want to add your region. I'm in the EU, so I'm going to add both Google Ireland and
what about Australia, though? Because I know I've got audience in Australia and Canada.
So yeah, Canada, yes, you do want to, a lot of the same privacy laws that apply in general globally apply in Canada. So you want to have your privacy policy with these disclosures, and you'll be covered for places like Canada. For Australia is a little bit of an odd one. It's like one of the few places last time I checked, because we did publish a post on Australia with a partnership with one of our external Australian-based lawyers, and they're one of the few places that don't have this explicit requirement for the privacy policy the last time I checked, but they do have privacy laws in place, and oddly enough, some of them can fall under the needing a cookie banner type thing, depending on if you fall within certain categories and you're using data in a certain way. So we wrote that post maybe a year ago or more, so I can't remember all of the details, but the lawyer that worked on it, he really put quite a lot of details there to make it easy for you to identify if you need to disclose something. But the fact is that so far under Australian law, you have to disclose if you fall into certain categories and things like that. That doesn't necessarily apply as broadly. And I can't tell you off the top of my head how it applies to companies that might be based in the EU. But anyway, if you are based in the EU, you have to apply GDPR protections across the board. So that's something to keep note of. If you are in the EU, then the GDPR applies to your operations because you're based in the EU. So you don't have that little out of, choosing to completely forego making the correct disclosures and things like that. Fortunately or unfortunately, I don't know, for the EU-based businesses here today. So that's something to keep a note of. Also, check out our GDPR guide because it helps you to identify when the GDPR applies, and it applies in 3 situations when it applies to you. Okay, so I think we've added quite a fair amount of clauses. I'm not going to scroll all the way down. Quick notes on creating a custom clause. I'm not going to actually do one, but I just wanted to show that really quickly. So you have the option, you name your clause. So let's say we go to my custom clause. And for the description, a lot of people, let's say sometimes you don't really know what to say. It might be some kind of custom component on your site that was made by an external developer or something like that. You some kind of specialized thing that you have on your site, or maybe something that doesn't exist in our generator, which is very hard to find, but it does happen that a few things are not included. What we kind of suggest doing is that if you don't have, if you don't really know how to phrase it or what to write, find a similar service in our generator, because it covers so many topics. So let's say you have a custom analytics program, then you can go pull up our Google Analytics clause in the preview and get an idea of how that text is written, and then sort of just fill in your correct information and add it to the description here.
That's helpful. I use something different called Matomo, which is an open source analytics tool. So I could take a look at that and then update that.
Exactly. Also, if you're using this external tool, you know, they might have some interesting information there on how the data is used and stuff like that you can also factor into your clause. But anyway, by simply following the layout of one of our services in the generator, you can get an idea of exactly what information you'll need to include, and you'll get an idea of the purpose. But here you can pick from the purposes: analytics, advertising, you know, whatever it is. And then you can show if you want to show the service on just your privacy policy. If it's not using cookies, then it doesn't need to be on your cookie policy. If it does, then you include it on both. So we didn't add anything, so we're just gonna go back.
I just need to add, I just checked, you already cover Matomo for me anyway, so I don't even need to make anything up.
Yeah, we're always adding, always. And we do on Twitter, we do post every time we add a new service. We try to keep kind of do a little shout out and say that we've added a service, but we also include it in our newsletter. Okay, so we're just going to go back without saving here for that one. And then we're going to just go ahead and click on Save and Close. And so now it's going to you can see all of the services that we've added to the policy collecting personal data. And in some cases, you can already see some information about it here in short form. And then you can also edit. Let's say I realize that actually, I realized that maybe I'm not going to be sharing the information with Google LLC United States or whatever. So I might want to edit that. And then I'll just go back in here and edit again. Sorry for the delay on the loading, guys. Yeah. Next time I'm going to close some more tabs. So yeah, so you can always go back in here and edit or whatever, save changes, and then just click Save and Close. But in any case, that was just to show you that you can easily go back in and edit anything that maybe you didn't get done before. Okay, so now we've done that. I wanted to show really quickly how you can just add a new language. So we've done it in English, and let's just add a language. Okay, so you have all the available languages. We have Russian, Spanish, Brazilian, Portuguese, Italian, German, French, Dutch, and we are adding languages always. So let's just say we're also going to do Italian. All right, so now we have the entire policy totally covered in Italian as well, and I can just click there to go on the Italian version of my site, and everything will be nice and translated. I believe I'm on the Italian one now. Yes, so let's just take a look. No, wait, maybe I'm not on the. Let me just go back and click on view. Sorry. Yeah. Okay. So here we are. So we're on the Italian versions of the site here, of the policy here, and we can just go ahead and view the full privacy policy. So actually, you can edit it in Italian on the previous page, but my settings are defaulted to English. So sorry about that, guys. That's my browser settings. But the point is that with just a click, you can copy the entire policy. And we're already previewing the entire policy here in Italian. So let's just go back to English.
And dumb question then. So that Italian, that's not like an automatic translation, which could cause problems. That you guys have actually had these translated. Yeah. And then I assume, therefore, if I write my own custom terms, I'm responsible for something, you know, like you showed us earlier. I would be responsible for ensuring I got a proper translation in Italian of that to add that to the Italian translation.
Exactly.
Cool.
Yeah,
all right.
exactly.
I know it sounds obvious. I just wanted to check.
No, glad if you pointed it out, because the thing is, you just want to be careful when you're using legal terms and stuff like that. And Google Translate is quite good, but sometimes things get lost in translation.
Yeah,
so we do actually have humans translating all of the clauses, like translators that can work with legal text. So
it's very impressive. That's a lot of work. So I'm impressed.
Yes, it is. Thanks for saying that. So here already on the preview, again, you can see the privacy policy. We do this simple view, which is more of a visual view, because a lot of privacy laws, the main aspect of it is transparency, and we don't want to overwhelm the user. The point is that this is for the benefit for them to understand how the data is being processed. And also it gives the transparency. They feel they can trust you, but it's also just considerate. And I think it's good for a brand, for a user to be able to see, okay, they've made this easy for me to understand. And then if I want to know more, I can just go and show the complete privacy policy and then sort of get all of that information here, right? The advertising, the analytics, and all of this stuff. Easily here in detail and stuff like that. So I wanted to, and you can see all the information here. Here, this is some extra CCPA disclosures. For example, this process constitutes a sale based on a definition under the CCPA. So you have the text as needed, also places of processing and things like that. Rights of the users that apply based on the different laws. So rights of the users under the GDPR as well as under the CCPA and stuff like that. This is something that how do not track requests are handled. That's something that applies under CALOPA. We just kind of have it by default as well, but it's also one of the first Californian online privacy laws that still applies. And this is a requirement. You need to state how these do not track requests are handled, how changes to the privacy policy is handled. And this is the CCPA related information as well, because the CCPA text was activated. So you also need to disclose how the users can exercise their rights and what their rights are and things like that. And of course, we have the definitions and legal references so that the user can make sense of the privacy policy. And these things, again, are legally required. So I wanted to show that it's quite long, even though we had about 6 or 7 services added, because this is why you want to be really careful with things like templates. A lot of times they're like 2 pages or something like that. And that you're definitely not disclosing everything unless you have even one of the most simple sites. It's really hard to just have like a 3-paragraph thing be able to work as a legitimate privacy policy. So I just wanted to point that out. So I'm just going to go ahead and click on it next here. And this was kind of like the most exciting part. This part here is for you to include your company details and full address, and then your email address, and they're required under the law, so that people can identify who's processing their personal information. So let's just go with, we're going to go with Acne. Okay, and just any kind of address here would work. And then I'm just going to go ahead and click on next. All right, so then the privacy policy is generated. It's as we already previewed. You have the complete thing here. You have all of that information there. And now this little step is just in case you have more than one product, or let's say you still need to do your cookie policy. You're based in the EU. We try to make it easy for you to understand the general trajectory, and we have all of the products available here. So let's say you have both the privacy policy and you've already purchased the license for like the consent solution, then you can just go straight away here and set it up, or just activate the cookie policy. But in this case, we're just going to go to the embedding instructions. So here we are, and this is to integrate the documents. So I'm not going to show integration for everything. I'm going to need to switch the screen though, because I am going to show one quick how to integrate it with like a WordPress site, because it's quite popular, right?
No problem.
So, and I wanted to make sure I touched on that, because you can see code and it can seem really, daunting. Yeah. So first of all, we have 3 options. You have as a widget in the footer, and that looks like this little button. So right now I have like
that's what I have.
Yeah. Okay, you have this one. So yeah, so you can have like white.
Yeah, it's quite easy to set up.
Yes, exactly. And I mean, the direct link is even easier. But for this, so you have like the white button, you have the black button, and then you also just have like with no style applied. So it's just like a link. It's still going to open up in the widget. And that's it. The widget is like this beautiful kind of light box effect. We're just going to go with the standard white. And it doesn't have the iubenda logo or anything attached to this one. It's just like white label, plain white button. Another option here is you can use a direct link. This might be useful for App Store requirements where you have to just you're required, like let's say by the App Store to have a privacy policy, and you just need the link when you're filling out that form and stuff like that. So you just have a link that you can copy here. We generated in 2 languages, so we have the link for each language here. If we generated in 8 languages, then you would have tabs for each one so that you could collect the correct code. And then the other one is embed text in the body. And this is really interesting because let's say, you could also use the API to call it from your backend. And then you have the option to use plain HTML with no styling, and then to embed dynamic sections only. So just to talk about this real quick, I'm keeping my eye on the time, and I think we should be able to make it. This is really useful. Let's say you want to have the privacy policy on a page on your website. You don't want it, you want a link from your menu, but you want it not to show up in that nice little light box, but you want it to show up on an actual page on your website. And maybe you want to use your own styling, your own brand colors, fonts, whatever the fonts are on your site. If you select this option and you click use plain HTML with no styling, it's going to give you it's going to pull the text, and then it's going to pull the styling that you have applied on your website. Now, keep in mind, part of our styling is the lightbox effect. It is that nice thing with the simplified privacy policy and then the full privacy policy that's all covered by our styling. So if you remove that, you don't have that effect. But it means that you can apply whatever effects you want to, like it would display with the default styling of your website. So that is available. And for some brands, that's quite important. It's really up to you. It's a matter of preference. And for the embed dynamic sections, these are like some other companies. It depends on your particular needs. Let's say you have your own in-house legal team, and they want to write the rest of your privacy policy, except the parts for the third-party integrations that you use. You can embed some dynamic sections, which will pull the correct data on the services, for example, from the generator and display that in your privacy policy, while allowing you to have the rest of your privacy policy custom made by your team of lawyers or whatever. It's sort of a simple example, but we do give you that option as well. So we try to cover everything. So let's dive real quick to the easiest one to show right now, which is just doing the little widget on your site. So it's really easy. You just need to click on copy, and that's already copied to my dashboard. And then I'm going to go to, I have a little WordPress site open. So I need to switch to that screen. So I'm going to stop sharing on my iubenda dashboard. And then I'm going to go and just share the screen of my WordPress site. This is my new website. Okay, so we're here in the dashboard. I just set this thing up really quickly. So doesn't really have any content on the site. But if you wanted to just add this to your site really quickly, you want to go to Appearances, Widgets, and this is one way you can integrate. Of course, there are 3. And then we're just going to go ahead and maybe add. So we have the footer here, and we want to just go ahead and add a custom HTML here widget to my footer, and I want it there. And then I'm going to go ahead and just paste the code from iubenda. And that's it. I'm just going to click on save. And then now I'm just going to go and visit. So actually, we're just going to visit it right here, because then I'm going to have to switch tabs. All right. And this is my empty theme. So there's nothing here. But if we, wait a second, I need to refresh. I'm not seeing it. Oh, here we go. Right. Sorry, guys. I needed to refresh. Okay. So if we just go right here, you can see that we have the privacy policy button. Now I have it up here because this is the section that's created under the theme for the footer. But of course, you can include it in your bottom menu wherever you want. You simply need to go back into widgets and make sure that you place that little custom HTML widget in the section that you want it to show up in. So I wanted it to show up under recent posts because obviously when I have site content, it's all going to go here and this will be a part of my footer. And it shows up right here. You just click on it and we have the privacy policy and the show complete privacy policy very easily. So it's more or less copy and paste. Everything is right there. So the hardest thing that you will have to do, and it's not really that hard, is to just decide where you want to place it. Usually we heavily suggest, it's a standard, to place it in your footer so that it appears all over your website, right? You want it to be easily accessible from every page on your site, and that's actually a legal requirement under certain laws. So like under the GDPR, users need to be able to access the privacy policy and the disclosures there wherever they are on your site, and it needs to be easy to see and easy to access. So typically you want to put it into the footer. Yeah, and that's kind of it.
Awesome. All right. Peacher, you're on mute. It sounded ecstatic.
That's it, folks. That's it. We don't need. That's it. It's nothing to it. We can do it in a minute. That's done. No worries. That's it.
I think that was the point. Is you can't do it in a minute because you do need to think about it.
I'm trying to really quick, since we're here just to show it. I'm not going to show the whole thing, but I see that I have 2 more minutes, and I just wanted to make sure, like for what I spoke about before. I don't want people to be confused. If you want to add it to a page as well, you could just go into your pages and then also add the code here under, what was it? It was the embed text in body. So you do the same thing, you copy, and then you also paste it into your page and it'll show up. So it's pretty easy to integrate. And now I'm going to stop sharing my screen. Actually 2 minutes early today. So
awesome. That's fantastic. Well, we do have a hard stop as well because I'm part of another event that follows up after this. So I think what we will do, folks, is you have now learned of the importance. You've been given some pointers at the very beginning of what you should be doing manually with regards to looking at those inputs, etc. What we've also done is we've seen how to use Ubenda and all of those things that we should be considering and making sure we look at those tooltips, making sure we look at the information. We have been reminded that we can use some of it for free. There is a few little upgrades for the price of a cup of coffee, which is awesome, but it looks like a very, very good system that you could be using and very easy to integrate with your website. So if you want more information, please look at iubenda.com. We will put a link in the comments so that you can check that out. Abbie, do you mind also, there were a couple of questions which you don't have time to answer, but do you mind checking them out on this live stream and maybe getting someone from Ubenda just to answer those people direct? That would be really helpful because there was a couple of questions in there, which is phenomenal. Folks,
yeah, absolutely. And you can always reach out to me on Twitter as well. Happy to reply also on the Ubenda Twitter as well.
Fantastic.
Always happy to reach out. Yeah.
No worries. So, well, if you do have further questions, please do reach out to Abbie via Ubenda. Remember, you can find out all of that information over on their Twitter. We popped this up earlier, twitter.com/Ubenda. Like Abbie said, they also share their latest services that have been added. Like I was impressed when Matomo was added because that's an open source system. And I thought, they won't have that, but they do, which is cool. So
I want to add that because of the dashboards, is also super useful for agencies as well. Just something to keep in mind. So.
Wow. No, that's awesome. Well,
it really is.
Young Peacher, how can people connect with you?
People can connect with me on the Design for Geeks website. Facebook group, although there is a website as well. Twitter, Peacher, Piccia, and on LinkedIn, I'm Peacher Neri. Really easy.
Awesome. Abbie, do people connect with you on the Ubenda Twitter, or is there anywhere else you'd like people to connect with
my
you?
personal Twitter, it's Abbie M. Clement. That's ABBIEM, letter M, and Clement.
Awesome.
On Twitter as well as via the Ubenda
nice.
Twitter.
So please do connect, because again, another hour was still not enough. There is still more that we could probably glean from Abbie. So again, thank you so much for your
because
time.
then, yeah, I bet that next time we go on it and we start looking, we go, oh, what did she do? Why can't I remember?
It's all right.
Anyway.
We can watch the replay. Also,
Yes.
on replays, folks, there is a replay of the previous call, and you never know, we may encourage Abbie to come back again soon. You can connect with me over on agencytrailblazer.com, and all that's left for us to do is bid you adieu. Thank you for watching, everyone. Take care and have a great day. Cheerio.